topic is post-traumatic stress disorder. The biggest thing that I'm going to go over with this is it's such a broad topic, and so the biggest things that I'm going to touch on are pretty much what causes post-traumatic stress disorder, the symptoms of it, as well as like how you can help somebody. So my thesis statement would just be that I believe that post-traumatic stress disorder should be more widely taught on due to the fact that any traumatic event can cause this, and we live in a world where traumatic events happen daily. So to begin, PTSD can be caused by things like natural disasters. So if there's like a hurricane where you live that destroys like the environment around you, personal loss, so if you lose like a loved one, like whether that be a family member, a significant other, that's a traumatic experience in your life. There's things like sexual assault and any other traumatic event that happens, which can be big or small. Especially traumatic events can be different for every individual person. So something that might be traumatic to one person might not be traumatic to somebody else. But you just kind of have to understand the level that it's whatever's trauma to you can cause PTSD in yourself. So PTSD is a psychiatric condition. The term PTSD was originally coined as shell shock. You guys have probably heard about this at some point in your history classes. It was originally like a military term to describe the people that were in the military that came back. They had these symptoms of PTSD, but at this point we didn't know what it was. So they just kind of described it as shell shock to say, you know, they're around bombs exploding. They kind of have this like hypervigilance around like loud noises, so that's what it is. But they eventually have determined that it's not just military, it's all trauma that people experience. So the textbook Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder Basic Science and Clinical Practices states that studies across cultures, languages, and races suggest that PTSD is a universal response to trauma. So that's just something interesting that while we might speak different languages, be from different parts of the country, have different cultures and backgrounds, we all respond to trauma in a similar way. Though, like I said earlier, we have those different levels of like what we can accept, like trauma-wise in our lives. We're all across those cultures and races and languages taking trauma in the same way and eventually having like PTSD in response to it. So this statement kind of begs the question, like, if you experience a traumatic event, are you going to have PTSD? So the short answer is no, but that kind of begs a different kind of like topic of we all experience trauma differently. So the fact that, like I said earlier, we're all going to experience trauma and all going to have different responses to it. So just because trauma is the cause of PTSD doesn't mean that when you experience trauma, you're going to have this. It has also been found that those who experience trauma once in their life and then experience it multiple times after, you have a higher risk of PTSD. So while you may experience trauma once in your life and not have any symptoms of PTSD afterwards, as you experience more trauma in your life, you have a higher likelihood of developing PTSD later on. So to go into symptoms of PTSD, so there are things like nightmares, flashbacks, flashbulb memories. So those flashbulb memories are like, you will associate, like, for example, like smells. So it's kind of like a sensory thing. So for example, like last March, I was in a car accident and like the airbag went off. And like if you've ever been in a car accident where like the airbag goes off, it has a very distinct smell. So for like 3 months afterwards, I would get like a whiff of like dirt or like something like that, and like I could smell the airbag again. So that's kind of like a flashbulb memory where you're kind of like flash back in time in a way to like this thing that like is traumatic. So another thing of symptoms is inability to sleep and concentrate, because you're either having those nightmares or you're so, like you're sitting in class and you're trying to concentrate in class, but you're having flashbacks to those events in your life. And lastly, hypervigilance, which kind of goes back to those like flashbulb memories. You're having like an increased state of sensory sensitivity, so you're more sensitive to like light, to noise, to like smells, for example, on that one. So you may not personally have PTSD, but like I said earlier, in a world so full of trauma, you may one day have it or know somebody who does. So according to helpguide.org, there are multiple ways to help people with PTSD. So one would be to provide social support. So let them take the lead, encourage them to get back to normal activities. So when you have PTSD, you kind of are crippled by this world of like being so focused into like, I don't think I'm gonna get better. I don't think I can like run away from like these nightmares or things like that. So by helping them do normal things, you're helping them get back to that normal life. Two, it would be help them rebuild trust and safety. So again, going back to they think that like they're never gonna get better, to know that like you're going to try to eliminate stress at home, that you're gonna commit, plan for the future, keep promises. That makes them feel like they have like a safe place to land and like you're not gonna leave them. And then lastly, learn to anticipate and manage triggers. So educate yourself and learn like what might trigger the individual that you know, and learn how to like, learn how to help them and maybe like calm that trigger if they are triggered. So as stated previously, PTSD should be taught and studied more, I believe. we're in the confines of a world where there are traumatic events happening daily. So I believe that by educating oneself on the causes, on the symptoms, and educating ourselves on how to help individuals who have this, we can be better equipped to handle a condition that I believe will only become more prevalent in our society.